What is up, Successful Dropouts? It has been a while, so it is very good to be back on the mic with you here. I have some questions to answer and a glass of wine, so I am good to go. It's been a while because we've just been busy, man. We've been incredibly busy. I mean, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know we're up to quite a bit. But on top of all of that, we are having our first child, a little girl, here in, just a few weeks. It was a little longer than that, but man, it is coming up here. And I couldn't be more stoked. You know, when you first find out about something like that, which it was for the most part planned. Tay and I knew we wanted to start trying several months ago, and happened pretty quick. But when you first find out about something like that, it kind of rocks your world. You don't feel ready for it, and I was super nervous, mostly because I just feel like my career is not on me at this point. And then you just realize you're never going to feel ready for something like this. Just like you never feel ready to launch a new business or venture or start a new job. You just have to do it. But luckily, you've got 9 months to sort of prepare mentally and prepare your home and your finances and all these things. And at this point, I'm just incredibly stoked, and I'm really excited to be able to enter in this new journey and share what we learn with all of you guys. I know the age group varies of the people that listen to this, but if you're not a parent yet, maybe you will be in the future, and so maybe the stuff we'll put out will help. But you know, at this point, there's very few question marks. I'm proud to say there's very few question marks. You know, Tay and I have worked hard for the last decade to set our life up in such a way where we have a lot of freedom, and we can both work from home, and we live close to friends and family that we trust and have a great support system. And so we just couldn't feel more ready. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we build and run these businesses as well. You just have to be prepared for anything. You have to be really agile. You have to be okay with pivoting on a dime. And I think that's what parenting is kind of going to be like. I feel like we're going to be pretty unconventional parents as well. And I don't know. I'm stoked. Yeah. So there's that we've been preparing for. And then in addition to that, you may have heard me talk a few times about a project called Pure Motion and some of the other stuff I've been working on. Long story short, again, it's the entrepreneurial life. A lot of that stuff had to be put on the back burner for various reasons. I'm proud to say that none of it was like an outright failure. It was just a pivot. You know, we just got to a point where we realized, look, it's going to be better if we put this aside for now, put a pin in it. Let's come back to it later if the opportunity is still there. But there's these other things going on that we really need to focus on. And so with that same team, I pivoted a few months ago to a project called Kingmakers. Kingmakers.co is what you can type into your browser and go check that out and see what I've been up to. Essentially, it's an accelerator for business buyers. And so we work with people that want to buy an online business, and we help them source that business, find their ideal business, connect them to the financing, do deep due diligence on the deal, and get them all the way to a successful transaction. And then we actually invest in the deal alongside them as minority owners and help them grow and operate the business and build a portfolio of these businesses, actually. So it's a lot of fun. It's kind of taken off. We found a great product market fit, and so it's keeping our whole team very, very busy, but it's very exciting work. It's every day I got to talk to really neat founders of businesses that we're looking to buy, and I get to talk to really neat buyers of that want to buy these businesses. And these are very smart people, very smart entrepreneurs. Many of them kind of came up through the corporate world, and now they're looking for, but still have, management and entrepreneurial experience within an existing organization. And now they're looking to do something that gives them a little bit more freedom. And instead of starting a business from scratch, which is a great way to go. But there's pros and cons to each approach. One of the cons to starting a business from scratch is there's a lot more risk involved. And, statistically speaking, it's, the percentage of failure is, the attrition rate there, I guess, is quite large. So, you could try and fail a few times before you really get something that sticks. And even then it may be several months or even years until you start seeing the kind of cash flow that lets you actually take a paycheck and you're actually profitable. Again, still not a bad way to go, because if you do find like we have, like a great product market fit and it kind of takes off, you've got a great thing going, but you may fail quite a bit to get there, which again it's if you learn from those experiences, is all positive. But the other way to go, which is what we're helping people do, is just buy a business that already exists and sort of take it to the next level. And so that's what we do with Kingmakers, essentially. And we do these workshops. We hold those a couple times a year. And we've got several clients now, and it's just been going really, really well. But it does keep me very busy, I guess. So among other things, we still have our brick and mortar businesses, and Tay has her yoga teacher trainings and other retreats that she runs. So life stays interesting, to say the least. So that's a little background on what's been up with me for a while here. But on to the subject of this podcast here. That is good. Over the years, I get a lot of questions from you guys, and I've talked to a lot of you guys. There have been some questions that have definitely come to the surface as the most frequently asked questions from the Successful Dropout tribe, I guess you could say. I've probably talked to hundreds of you about these questions. They've been asked in our community and answered many times in various ways. But I wanted to take a moment and just sort of group them all together and go through one by one and speak specifically from my experience on what I have seen has worked. And so maybe these are one of the questions that, or some of these questions are ones that you've asked yourself or are currently asking. And I'm going to try to answer them as best I can from my own experience, what worked, what hasn't worked. And let's just jump into it here. So, probably the main one I get is, hey, Kylon, I have so many interests. Where do I start? How do I know if I'm going in the right direction? This is pretty common, especially if you're younger, say 18 to early 20s, and especially if you've decided to drop out from the traditional path and sort of forge your own path. I remember being in this stage in my early 20s and late teens and wanting to do all of these things, but not really knowing where to start and not wanting to waste time, especially. And you sort of get this anxiety, like, I want to do it all, but if I go down this path, and then what if I go down this path and then I discover that I don't like it? Have I wasted time there? And then I have to pivot and start all over from scratch again. I guess the answer here is you need to experiment. You still just need to experiment, especially if you're, I guess, not in your 30s yet. Even if you are in your 30s, it's still okay, especially if it works with the kind of life that you have so far. But as you build a family and just generally as you get older, it does get harder and harder to just experiment. And so in your late teens, in your 20s, scratch that itch. Whatever itch you have, make sure and scratch it. For me, one of those itches was the military. I had just been fascinated by all things military from an early age and wanted to see what that was like. It was more than that. Like I wanted to make a full-on career out of it. And so that's one of the things I did. Enlisted, and you guys have heard that story. Ended up getting a medical discharge because I got injured, and it was a kind of a low point in my life because it was sort of a dream crushed, right? But I scratched that itch, and ultimately, even though it wasn't as much my choice to leave as I would have liked it to be, looking back now, I think it was for the better, and I don't have to wonder, right? I don't have to look back with that regret. And so, another one was music. I wanted to be a musician, wanted to be in a band, wanted to be a rock star. And so we did that. Spent years touring and playing with a band, and played shows everywhere. Played the college circuit all up and down the West Coast. Played in dive bars. Really lived that lifestyle for a while, and discovered, hey, this is something that I want to continue to do, but I'm not going to make this my main thing, my main career. Mainly because it's just not a crowd that I want to be hanging out with all the time. I really do believe you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. And although there's some great people out there in the music world, it is very saturated. It's hard to sort of break out. And there's a lot of interesting characters, and not necessarily people or a lifestyle that I want to, I don't know, be involved with every day. But having said that, I scratched that itch enough to know that this is something I want to continue doing for probably the rest of my life. So I have a drum set up. I get out there. I practice, a couple times a week at least, sometimes more. And I'm continuing to do that. And we actually just, our band actually just released another album. Went to my buddy's house. He's actually my business partner, and turned it into a studio for like a week, and knocked out an album, which actually releases in a couple weeks here. And I'd love to share that, guys, with you. I'll put it out in the group or something like that. So stay tuned. I'm really proud of it. But, all the guys in the band now, there's 3 of us, including me, we're all entrepreneurs. And so we're to a point where we all scratched that itch, but we decided we don't want this to be our main thing. But we want to keep doing music. So we're going to build these businesses and sort of figure out something else to do. And then as we, have the money and the free time, we're still going to, pump some effort and some resources into this passion of ours. And we don't have any goal really of making it big, or we don't have any delusions that this thing is going to just take off. But boy, we have a ton of fun. And even if it's just for ourselves, we still like to get together, record, release these albums, go and play a few shows a year, and just have fun, and if something happens, if people like it enough and it really takes off, so be it. But point being, that was another itch that I scratched. And so you don't want to get to a point where you're a lot older and you're looking back and wondering, what if I would have pursued these things? What if I would have just tried it? And so if you are younger, get out there and scratch that itch. Like, this is the time when you can afford to still live in your mom and dad's basement and live off of ramen and, sleep in a van, and sort of lose your shirt on things and make it back, right? This is the time to do it. So just get out there. And guys, it's scary. You're taking these risks, right? And you'll probably fail a lot, but learn from those failures, and you'll look back and it's going to be some of the best memories you'll ever have. You will not regret it. I'm just telling you that right now, as a 29-year-old who spent, like the last decade plus just pursuing a bunch of different things and scratching those itches. So, some practical ways to do that, I would say, let's say if it comes to a job, say there's 3 different types of jobs or kind of career paths that you're interested in. Maybe there's not an opportunity for you to go get a paying job or a paying position or make a business out of it that actually earns you money right away. But you can still find out if you enjoy that work enough to find a paying job or create something that actually makes you money. And the way that you can find out if you enjoy the work, this is the most important thing. You need to find out if you enjoy it or not. Do you enjoy day after day getting up and doing this work? The way to do that is just to do the work. I don't understand why people think I have to wait to find a legit position to see if I like it or not. If you want to be like a graphics designer, for instance, or if you want to, I don't know, create video games. These are things that I really know nothing about. But if you want to do like one of those two things, it's still very possible for you to just go and do that work. You're not going to maybe find somebody to do it for. You may not get paid, but it's very possible. Just do some Googling, find out, well, what is the average day of like a graphic designer? What are the kind of tasks that they do? And just go and do those. Go design something, or go try and make a video game, and be intentional about it. Take some time. Say I'm going to do this for a month, or even like 2 weeks. Say for 2 weeks, I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to spend like 6 hours of every day just doing this type of work, and I'm just going to build things and make projects and accomplish things related to this career path, whether or not I'm getting paid for it or actually doing it for somebody. And trust me, like, you'll find out pretty quick if you like it or not. And it's just a great experience of this is what it would actually be like. You can just project that out, right? After a week or two of doing something, just think, okay, what if I was doing this for the next decade? Would I still enjoy it? And you have to extrapolate a bit and think, okay, you're going to keep building on your skills and do bigger and better things, and maybe not have to work as hard as you get further and further kind of into your career, right? You have to think about that stuff. But the core raw work, do you enjoy it? So do some experimenting, like take 3 months. In 3 months, you could probably go through 5 things you're interested in and journal a lot, log the experience. The best way to do this, I think, is to create a personal website, your first and last name.com. You can go check out mine right now. It's sort of bare, but KylonGinger.com. Build a site like that, and this is pretty easy to do. Just start Googling how to set up a WordPress site and a blog, and I promise you can figure it out. And start journaling and blogging about your experience. And as you do work, like, showcase that, build a bit of a portfolio. Even if you don't go into that particular career path or build that particular business, it's going to be very valuable just as a kind of a credentialing and signaling tool to other people. Like, hey, this is what I've been up to with my time. This is what I've created. This is what I'm capable of. Like, as an employer myself, I would love to see that from somebody. And so you can do this easily. You can build a website in a day, and take 3 months out and of your time and go through 5 different things and figure out if you enjoy that work or not. So that would be my answer to this question of, I have so many interests, what do I do? You just need to start experimenting. Don't be under this delusion that you're going to just pick the right thing right off the bat, and that's what you're going to stick with for decades. You might get lucky, and there's some people that do that, but you're probably better off trying to scratch all of those different itches, even just from the standpoint of you won't look back later and regret it. Number 2, this is kind of a 2-part. How do I connect/network with more people like myself? Or how do I connect/network with people who are doing what I want to do? Okay. The easy answer here is Successful Dropout. You can join our Facebook group. You can join our forum. If you're listening to this podcast, then this community is full of people that are thinking the same way you do. So there's solution 1. Solution 2 would be meetup.com, which I don't have a lot of personal experience with, but I've heard it can be pretty great. It's just meetup.com, and it's just a place where, especially if you live in a bigger city or next to one, say like I'm closest to Seattle, if I search a particular interest, say in meetup.com, there's probably 5 different groups of people that maybe meet at a coffee shop or something once a week, and discuss, and maybe they have like a mastermind or like a small group or something. But this is a good way to actually get in with a crowd that has the same type of interests or life trajectory that you do, and start to network. The other thing I would suggest is, like honestly, the biggest networking tool for me is this podcast. In fact, what I'm doing now with the team at Kingmakers is a direct result from the very first interview I ever had on this show, and a relationship that was built subsequently because of that. And a lot of the other opportunities that have come to me, and some that will come in the future, have also come from people that I have had on the show or just interacted with as a result of Successful Dropout. And Successful Dropout was like, this podcast is such a great excuse to reach out to people that are doing things that you admire, that you're interested in, that you want to learn more about, and just sit with them for an hour. There's no other way, I think, I think it's one of the best ways. There's very few ways, let's put it that way. There's very few ways to get the attention of really busy and important people that are doing really cool stuff, and just get them one-on-one focused on you and nothing else for like an hour, than having a podcast. And even a blog will do. I've done several interviews just for Kingmakers, for example, with a blog style interview. And so you talk to each other much like this, but instead of recording, or you could record it, but you have it sort of transcribed and you release that in sort of written format, which is fun as well. So, or you can send them a list of questions. Say, just, you're going to interview this person. You type out 10 questions in a Word document, send it over, and they type out their answers, and that's your interview. And you post that on your site, and hopefully people learn from it and stuff. But you just had a great excuse to get 10 questions, burning questions maybe, that you've wanted to ask this person, answered by this person. And then you're putting it out there for other people to see and providing value. And yet that's another way to network, because you're going to get a lot of people that are interested in that same thing, listening to your thing, and they're going to want to talk to you and interact, and you'll become friends and stuff like that. So, and starting a podcast is not difficult. I have kind of a template and sort of list of resources and ways to get started that I'm happy to send you if you email me at Kylon@successfuldropout.com. Again, that's Kylon@successfuldropout.com. I've helped several different people actually now start podcasts. It's a lot easier than you would think. And it's easier to get guests on than you would think as well. So that, yeah, I guess speaking from personal experience, that has probably been the biggest networking tool for me, and I would highly suggest that. And you win on so many different levels there. Not only are you building your network, but you're putting out valuable content, and then if it's good content and if it's valuable to people, they'll listen to that. And these will be people that are interested in the same thing you are, again. And so you're making friends that way and networking that way. So you're networking on sort of two different levels there. But I have beat that horse. So we can move on. Those would be my tips for networking. Also, LinkedIn is great as well. Just searching what you're interested in and different careers and vocations and stuff on LinkedIn, and connecting with people there. How do I talk to my parents about dropping out? I don't feel like I want to spend too much time on this one, because I've answered it a lot. But the biggest thing is to just present a plan. Like, act like you're not dumb. Like, act like you actually are wanting to do something with your life. Your parents just care about you. And their biggest concern is, if you drop out, what are you going to do? And maybe to them, dropout still has a really negative connotation. Like, you're just going to drop out and not do anything in your life. You just play video games all day. Don't do that. Put together a plan and show them that you're actually putting some thought and effort into your life. So a plan with an ultimatum is probably the best way to go. And, so the way I would do this is structure it accordingly. Say you're going to take a year off, and these are, say, the 3 things that you're going to pursue, or the 1 thing you're going to pursue, or these are the things you're going to try, and this is why you're going to do these things. And have a plan for actually executing on those. Write that out and show this all to your parents. Outline it, to give them like kind of a presentation on this. And then, the ultimatum would be, if in a year none of these things have come to fruition, and you haven't reached certain benchmarks, and you should outline those. Like, these are the things that will determine this was a success. And mom and dad, if I don't reach these things, then I'll go back to school. And I can promise you, I've talked to several different people now who have done this in the SD community, and it worked. And it's a little scary because I'm giving them advice to sort of go a different route than their parents would like, but and they're telling their parents this, and I'm sort of thinking like, man, I'm gonna get some angry emails from parents. But actually, I've gotten really positive emails. People have been like, I've had parents email me and just be like, thanks, that was a great suggestion. We're gonna give this a shot, and here's what we're gonna do. I've had dropouts and opt-outs email me the same thing. Like, my parents thought this was a great idea. So this works. And giving yourself an ultimatum like that, like I will go back to school and do what you guys would like me to do if we don't hit these sort of benchmarks, is a great motivator for you as well, right? That's gonna kind of kick you in the butt and give you some motivation, right? If this is something they're still not open to, I would bring up the gap year discussion. It is extremely common for people, especially between high school and college, to take a gap year just to explore. And that's just a normal thing. Everybody's cool with that. And so this is essentially a gap year. It's just structured by yours truly. So if they don't like the plan you present and the ultimatum, I would at least bring that up as just a good argument. Is like, hey, people do this all the time, by the way, and this is what you create could probably be a lot more structured than even some of those gap years or gap year programs, I guess. Sip. How do I know if dropping out is the right decision or not? This is an interesting one because it's sort of a nuanced line to ride, right? This idea of quitting something that's bad for you and quitting something that's good for you. Good quitting and bad quitting, right? There's two different kinds. Like, everybody claps for the person who quits smoking because they've quit a thing that's obviously bad for them, right? But in most cases, this idea of quitting something has all these negative connotations. And so, a lot of this is going to come down to you being introspective, and I think doing a lot of journaling and just sort of asking yourself, your inner self, these questions and being really, really honest with the answers. Because something you don't want to do is just quit school because it's hard, or even because you're bored, and especially because you're doing terribly, and maybe you don't have anything else that you want to do after you quit school. I would say that maybe that would be a red flag, and maybe you should put more thought into it. And so if you're at this space where you're just like, classes are boring, this sucks, I'm not enjoying it at all, I don't really know what I want to do with my life, but I don't like this, so I'm just going to quit. I wouldn't suggest that. If you're going to jump ship, have another ship to jump to. And again, this comes back to talking to your parents. Have a plan, right? On the flip side, I've talked to a lot of people that are fed up with college, with university, even with high school. And these are very motivated individuals who understand and have a kind of a track record of being able to set goals and execute on those goals. And even if they fail, at least learn something. At least there's some forward momentum, or as my friend Isaac Morehouse would put it, there's some forward tilt to who they are and the way they're living their life. And college or traditional schooling is obviously just weighing them down, and they're miserable. And this is somebody I would encourage to drop out. And because they have a plan and there's other things they want to go on and do. Really, their only barrier is they're just scared about letting go of this sort of security of the traditional path. So again, it's really not possible for me to give this all-encompassing answer that, like, it really just comes down to you need to be introspective and be able to understand yourself. Are you the type of person that can quit this security? And yes, you have more freedom, but it also means you're going to have to stay motivated. You're going to have to keep this forward tilt and this momentum going forward, and and actually accomplish things and put your life together. And so you need to know whether you're that type of person or not. If you're not, I would think twice about quitting school, just because it's hard and because you don't like it. If you are, then I would go ahead and do it. Let's move on here. Personal branding and credentialing. Yeah, so this is a good one. You know, we've talked about this concept of what is a college degree, right? It's all it is a credential and a signal to employers and the workforce and the general world that you've accomplished something. You've learned these things. You've gotten this stamp of approval from this organization. These other credentialed people have said, yes, he is now credentialed. He can go and do these things. He's passed my class. He's gotten these sorts of scores, right? It's all a degree is just a signal that you've sort of done something. You've sort of accomplished something, right? But if you've dropped out of this system, you still need a way to sort of credential and brand yourself, right? You still need a signal to employers and the world and the workforce that, like, hey, I'm here and I am capable of doing these things. And hey, I've accomplished these things. This is my credentialing. So this is where this concept of self-credentialing comes in. You know, as far as actual personal branding goes and sort of setting yourself apart from the masses, I would say anything that Damian Ford puts out is something that you should pay attention to. He's been on this podcast twice, episode 72, and then season 2, episode 6. Is where you can find Damian Ford. And this guy is a master at all things branding and setting yourself and your company apart from the crowd, right? And even if you go to successfuldropout.com right now, there'll be an opt-in. There's a little opt-in bar at the very top of the page. If you punch in your email address there's a really neat PDF on branding specifically for dropouts that Damian put together that I think you'll really like. It's a free resource that we'll send you if you punch in your email address there at the opt-in. So that's on our website. I would definitely check that out. So that's in terms of kind of personal branding. In terms of credentialing, all this means is that you need to be able to showcase your work, the work you've done so far and the work you're going to do. And so you need to build a portfolio. And this goes back to what we said about the personal website. Again, I would say everybody should have a personal website of some sort. And this is where you create. And this is where you showcase what you build and what you create. And I don't care what it is, from a course you went to something you actually built, whether it's tangible or intangible. There's a way to showcase it and sort of talk about it and that experience on your website. And this alone is often, well, I would say it's much better than just a degree, especially if it has to do with experiences that are these real life experiences that are teaching you real life hard and soft skills. Okay, this is something an employer is going to look at and be very impressed with. So again, I guess take my website for example. I don't think I've done the best job of going into depth just on my personal website on sort of my portfolio, but right on the front page you'll see these are all the things I'm involved with right now. It doesn't list things I've done in the past either, which I think you should do. But I type out this list, and there's a link, to each that people can click on that leads to, each business's website, or where they can find out more about this thing that I've done. And so even something as simple as that, like that is a college degree right there. It's much better than a college degree, actually. That's something that at any point in time, if I feel like I need to, for whatever reason, go out and get a job, that's one of the first things I would show people is like, here's all the things I have done. This is my portfolio. These are my credentials. And you can see, like, I've got some okay personal branding. Don't ask Damien to go give me a score or anything, because I don't know how good it would be. But, I even went as far as to create a kind of a personal logo for myself, and sort of brand myself a little bit as sort of this entrepreneur, dropout, CEO personality, and here are my projects. This is something you should do, and you should do it now, even if you don't have a lot of work experience. You can start with anything, and what matters is that you just take the first step and put the first thing on there, and just keep on adding to it. So in terms of personal branding and credentialing, that I guess would be my answer. Should I start a business or work for someone else? So this is a good one. I guess I can start by just describing what life is like for both, since I have done both. And this is something you should try to figure out quite early on. The earlier, the better. Are you a CEO, business owner type, or is it better for you to work for somebody else? There's no wrong answer here. There's not one of these that's better than the other. Contrary to popular belief, like, I think most people look at, oh man, like I should try to be a CEO. I should try to be a business owner. And working for somebody else is just not as good. Like, somehow I'm a failure, because we hear these things preached at us like, well, wouldn't you rather build your own vision than help somebody else build their vision? And it's like, to each their own, right? There is nothing wrong with helping somebody else build their vision. I'm doing that right now, and I absolutely love it. I love partnering with other people that have a vision bigger than I do, and working as part of a team and helping them accomplish that, and partaking in that. I also love casting my own vision and pursuing that. So I do both. There's no like, one way isn't better than the other. So if that's what you're thinking, just get that out of your head. So working for somebody else, obviously you may not have as much freedom, but you have a lot more security. You are able to, put your hours in and then forget about it at the end of the day or during the weekend. Even then, like, a lot of the jobs these days, like, employers are moving away from actually having employees and just hiring contractors. Which, by the way, if you hear me like sniffing and my voice sounds a little weird, I've just been sick for a week. It's really, it sucked, but yeah, actually employers are moving more to, having contractors and not really employees, which, as a contractor, you have infinitely more freedom than you do as an employee. You can kind of decide your own hours, typically work remotely. So there's a lot of jobs out there like that as well, where you are technically working for somebody else, but you're your own contractor with a lot more freedom. But even then, if you're working for somebody else in some, whether as an employee or as a contractor, you are looking to them for direction, and at the end of the day, like, the buck stops at them, right? And they're ultimately responsible for whatever the organization is that you're working inside of. And so at the end of the day, when you've put in your hours, again, yeah, you can just sort of forget about it. And often, like, there's a lot of people out there that this is the best decision for them, and you're going to save yourself probably a lot of stress and even some failures and risk by just working for somebody else. You might just be the kind of person who's happier overall as a result. I can definitely relate to that. I remember the days when I just strictly worked for somebody else, and those were glorious because I could just forget about it all when I'd come home and just be completely present in the moment, just the kind of person I am. If it's my own thing and if I have this responsibility of owning a business, I'm constantly thinking about it, and it's really difficult for me to relax. And so those days when I didn't have that, when I could just work for somebody else, there was definitely it was definitely easier to just relax and not be stressed out and focus on like hobbies and doing other things besides working and building business, right? So maybe that's you, and that is fantastic. On the flip side, owning your own business, working for yourself, the kind of life you can expect there is you really never stop working. These lines between like, the weekend and weekdays sort of blur, and every day is a potential work day. There's never really a day where you just feel, at least, and I'm personally speaking, like maybe some people handle it better, but like I can barely take one entire day off and just not think about work and not be working on something related to a business. Case in point, this is a Sunday. I was busy yesterday, Saturday, and I've had a heck of a last week. Just, you always want to be straddling this line between boredom and anxiety. I think that's the sweet spot, right? You don't ever want to be too bored with your work. You don't, like, ideally, you don't want to be just 100% on the anxious side of the spectrum. Somewhere right in the middle is nice. I'm definitely this last week on the 100% anxious side of the spectrum. And even then, like, this has been the first day I can just, there's nothing that I need to do, but I felt like I wanted to sit down and record this because I wanted to accomplish something. And I feel like it's been a while since I've been on the mic with you guys, and I just wanted to record, so I'm getting it done, right? But it's this little voice that's constantly in the back of your head, like telling you to think about things or keep working and doing stuff. There's just no end to it. Like your work is everywhere. You bring it home to you. That's just the life of a CEO, of an entrepreneur, of a business owner. And so that's the kind of thing that if you're the type of person that is okay with that and that actually enjoys it like I do, then great. That's probably a life that you can lead. But if not, if that's something if it just doesn't appeal to you and you would rather have a little bit more space that is not taken up by work, especially mentally, then maybe working for somebody else is a great way to go. And again, there are plenty of jobs out there and ways to structure this to where you still have a lot of time and financial freedom to even maybe build some side hustles or something. But the thing is you're not, the buck doesn't stop at you, right? If everything fails, you're not ultimately responsible, and that's a nice security to have. So there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just you have to, again, this idea of being introspective and like open a Word document and just start journaling on this stuff. Also, back to what we said about experimenting. You can experiment with this, and especially if you're younger, you can scratch this itch, I guess. Next question. How do I know who to listen to? Who are the right people to take advice from? This one's pretty simple. Take advice from people who have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Yeah, that's all I've got there. So you know what you want to do tomorrow. Okay. So this question, it's laid out as, so you know what you want to do, what do you do tomorrow? But I guess it's related to any question I've gotten from you guys on like, okay, I know that this is the path I want to go down. This is the type of work that I would like to do. What's the best way now to proceed forward, to take next steps and accomplish these things? And so this is pretty simple. Basically just work backwards. What is your end goal? Again, this idea of begin with the end in mind. What is your end goal? And then work backwards from there. What are the things it's going to take to accomplish that? And then those things are going to end up being the goals you set, right? And then you have to figure out, okay, now how do I reach these goals? What are the steps I take to reach these goals? And those steps are going to be actions that you're going to take to reach goals. So it's this process of just the framework to think about here is you're working your way backwards from what you want to accomplish, and you're constantly breaking it down into smaller and smaller steps. So you're starting with big. Here's like the big 5 things that need to happen to accomplish this one major thing, and then what are the 5 things within those 5 things that's going to take to get there. And you can keep working your way backwards and breaking it down into smaller and smaller chunks until you get to these monthly, weekly, daily tasks. And so when you wake up tomorrow, okay, these are the 3 tasks that I have to do, and by doing these, I'm getting closer to this goal, and by getting closer to this goal, I'm getting closer to this overall objective of the kind of life that I want to lead. So there's that. Okay, last question here. Finances for a new dropout. How do I make and manage money after I drop out? Okay, let's start with the make money. You might have to do work that you don't plan on doing for the rest of your life to actually make money and pay the bills if you're in that situation. If you've just dropped out and you can live with your parents or a family member, do that. That's great. Try to save on costs as much as possible. I know it's cool to try to get your own apartment and be on your own, but man, if your parents are offering and you've got that type of support system, definitely take advantage of that. Save all the money you can and use that time wisely to experiment and figure out what you actually want to do. So when they kick you out and stop paying your cell phone bill, you've got your life put together, I guess. But if you aren't in that type of situation, you may have to go get a minimum wage job, and there is nothing wrong with that at all. One of my first jobs was working as a construction grunt, and I literally remember one of my worst days was my boss had these really run down low end apartments, and the people that he was renting to were constantly getting kicked out or being arrested for drug possession, and there was just constant drama and just crazy stuff. And this place was an absolute dump. And what I would do is if a tenant got kicked out or arrested, this specific time I'm thinking of, the gal there had gotten arrested because it basically turned into this drug den. And what I would do is go in and just clean everything out. We'd bring a giant dumpster in, throw everything away, fix whatever needed to be fixed, and kind of clean the place up for the next tenant. And I just remember very vividly just scraping up trash and garbage, and these poor people, just for whatever reason, they just lived like animals, and it was filthy in there. And there was cockroaches everywhere. It smelled. There was feces on the ground because there's no plumbing working. We'd shut everything off. They'd stopped paying rent, and so we'd shut the utilities. It all shut off, and they just kept on living there like normal. So you can only imagine what that was like. But I scraped together this giant pile of trash and grabbed it with my hands, and I picked it up, and there was just a needle sticking in between my fingers. Just barely had missed puncturing one of my fingers. I just remember looking at that and being like, oh man. Again, good job. I made $9 an hour, a whopping $9 an hour, man. And it was a great learning experience. And I learned a lot of valuable skills that would allow me to start the residential commercial painting company that I started later with my buddy. Because I learned some very basic sort of trade skills during that job, and it was great, but it was a way to bring the money in. And so this is something you might have to do. Ideally, you get something that gives you some freedom and some time off to work on what you really want to work on, or experiment on and sort of go the direction you want to go. But you have to pay the bills. So make that money. If I guess in terms of resources that Successful Dropout has, what I would really, really suggest you do is check out Seth Himes' course at it's his in-demand career course. To check that out, you can go to successfuldropout.com / digital marketing. Again, that's successfuldropout.com / digital marketing. And Seth, he's been on the show before. You can go to the podcast section on our website and just type Seth into the search bar, and both of his shows will pop up. But the guy has had incredible success with his students. He has a whole course that teaches you how to do digital marketing, and his students get like $60,000 per year jobs, easy. And you're working as a freelancer, as a contractor for various companies doing their digital marketing. And so you have a lot of time and freedom. You can kind of set your own hours, right? And you can work from anywhere. So this is a great job to get as a way to earn money and pay the bills, while still having the bandwidth and the ability and freedom to work on the things that you want to work on and take the next step and leave that. But it's also a great skill set. Digital marketing isn't going anywhere. More and more people are coming online. More and more companies are wanting to, I guess, bolster their digital marketing efforts. And it's sort of it's a techie space that a lot of people just don't have the time or interest to get in and into and figure out. So this is a skill that you can, I guess, always fall back on, similar to how, I thought that way about the construction trade. If I had to, I could always go make money by painting a house or doing some carpentry work or framing or something like that. So that's the main thing I guess I would suggest in terms of making money is go check out Seth's course there, successfuldropout.com / digital marketing. In terms of managing that money, let's just start with, I'll just leave you with the very simple concept of budgeting. Learn how to budget, please. If you learn how to budget, this, again, is a skill that will serve you your entire life and keep you out of debt and keep you from having just money issues. I think the number one cause of divorce and just stress is probably finances. And if you get really, really good at budgeting, you can avoid all of that, especially the earlier you start. So I guess the simplest way to put budgeting is you think about it as pre-spending your money. So, for instance, what Tay and I do is we don't do this every month now, but we did just because we've gotten really good at it now. But what we do is we sit down and think at the end of each month, and we look at the next month. We look at, okay, here are all the things that are on our calendar. Here are all the things we want to do. Maybe we have to travel somewhere. Maybe it's somebody's birthday party. Maybe it's the holidays. And we think, okay, what are all the things that we're going to have to spend money on this month? Here's all the regular sort of recurring expenses, like our utilities and, mortgage, things like that. We know most of those, but what are all the other things that don't normally happen that are happening this month? Maybe we have a big party coming up, so we're going to have to get more groceries, or like we have somebody staying with us, so we have to get more groceries than normal. And we sort of figure that out, and then we plan accordingly. And we allot certain amounts of money to those different expenses. And then we actually draw cash out. So we for years now, we've been doing the cash envelope system, if you're familiar with it, which is essentially you have a regular envelope for every category of spending that you have, from your car payment to your mortgage to your groceries to the gas you need for that month. There's an envelope for gas, there's an envelope for groceries, there's an envelope for entertainment, you understand. And then you're going through and deciding, okay, how much money for the next month do we need for each of these categories? And so this is the pre-spending part. You're thinking about what you need to spend money on, and you're pre-spending it by then taking that money and putting it in that envelope. So you're withdrawing cash from your account, and you're putting it in each envelope. And then as you go through the next month, you're spending that cash out of the envelope. And it's amazing just what it does to you mentally to actually take out this cash and hand it to somebody and kind of see it go away, right? Versus just swiping some plastic that's so easy to do and not really think about, I'll just, $10 here isn't really going to make that big of a difference on my credit card or debit card or whatever. So I'll just swipe it, easy. But it makes it's a bigger impact when you take $10 out for some like fast food out of your envelope and you look in there and you say, oh, I only have $50 left for the next month. And then the rule is when you run out of cash in that category, you stop spending. You stop spending in that category. And so there's been plenty of months where we've thought, okay, well, let's put aside $100, maybe $150 for entertainment. So this will be, maybe we'll eat out for a couple meals. Maybe we'll go see a movie or two with some friends. That's what we'll plan on this month. So $150 for both of us. Maybe halfway through the month, we've spent that. And then somebody's like, hey, you want to go out to eat or something like that? And we'll just be like, what if we have like dinner and a movie or some games over at our place tonight? And, we'll spend from our grocery budget instead for that, right? But the point is you have to set up these boundaries for yourself and stay consistent and have that discipline. But budgeting, man, it's just so key. And I would really, really suggest that you start it with cash in this sort of envelope system. And even on the back of the envelopes, there's ways that you can keep track of what you spend as well. Just draw, a table there, and every time you spend something out of it, write down, minus $10 for Burger King, something like that. So there's a bit of a history there you can look back on. We don't do that anymore at this point, but you can do that. But starting with cash, man, it's so, it's powerful. And even if you don't stick with that long term, there's apps like Mint out there that you can use and hook up all your debit cards and your bank accounts and they keep track of all that for you. And you can set up your budget and your categories on these apps, right? But doing it with the physical money and the envelopes really teaches you the concept and just gets it in your head. And it just saves you so much stress, man. Like there have been months when we've got, say, like, I don't know, like big expenditures coming up, or like say we do go get groceries and, it's like $200 sometimes. Or if we go to Costco, man, it could be like $300 at once, right? It's stressful, at least for me. I don't know about for you guys, but it's stressful for me to like spend that type of money on groceries, even though I know I need it to survive. But if I've pre-spent it, if I've budgeted, like already budgeted for it a few weeks in advance, it's stress-free. Like I've already allotted that money. This is okay. And so I don't even have to think about it. And it's not something I lose sleep over, right? So just for your peace of mind, it's fantastic. Also having a savings, I would suggest the whole Dave Ramsey trick of having at least $1,000 as an emergency fund for, I don't know, if your car breaks down or something. This is $1,000 that's put away. We have it cash in our safe that you never touch. And actually, we periodically add to it. If somebody gives us cash for Christmas or something, we put that in as well. So it's even more than that now, but it's there. And if something just randomly happened today, like our car broke down or we had to get new tires all of a sudden, or washing machine broke or something, that can cause a lot of stress because you're like, that's unexpected. Where's that going to come from? It comes from the emergency fund, and that cash is there. And man, it just leads for a much, much better life. So if you just learn budgeting, guys, the earlier the better, your life will be so much better. But yeah, that's what I have for you guys. And as always, if you have any questions about what we talked about today or want to talk to me more, reach out via email, Kylon@successfuldropout.com. I love chatting with you guys. You know the drill. Stay hungry, stay foolish.